I am sure sports. You know me there, I'm coach to coach representing. I mean, I say this is righteous representing for Omar. You don't know, come get the sports over here from near and far. Boy. Me say I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. If me not sure, that me not say it. Know who score, that me not say it. Never know no game play, that me not say it. If me never see no game, me no know who play. For your sports news, better come over here so. For your soccer news, then come over here so. If you don't love sports, still come over here so. For the day done, you are gonna love over here so.
So when it comes on to behavior concerning football, Jamaica is decent. I am sure that if we can get all of these things done, set in place by the end of April, it gives us enough time before the World Cup campaign. Not afraid of no Brazil, no Argentina with these crap of players. We are good enough. Remember, like, subscribe, share. Listen, comment, let me know what your thoughts are.
Trick Jerk Marinade gives your meats and vegetables authentic Jamaican jerk flavor. The spices are directly from Jamaica. Spices like jerk seasoning, allspice, Scotch bonnet pepper, fresh scallions, thyme, ginger, and garlic. The key ingredients to a great jerk marinade. 0% sugar and low in sodium. You want to try it?
Made up of 18 Jamaican herbs and spices, add delicious, bold flavor to your next grilling experience. Flavoring sauce, a marinade, basting, condiment, or topping. Trick Nick Jerk Barbecue Sauce.
All right. Welcome back again. This is the show that we promised you that would have started at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time and 5:30 if you're in Jamaica presently. This is Manning's Man, and I have when I did the thumbnail, someone texted me and said, "Manning's Man, how did you get this big star on your program, Star?" I didn't know. You understand me? So I don't know if he's part of the Ghana, what they call them, the Black Stars. But he's here today. He goes by the name Kerry James. And if you watch Jamaica's football, you would have seen him at almost every game. Once Jamaica is playing, he's normally there. So to have him here is very, very important and timely. He supports the male, the female team, just Jamaica's football. His father is one of the upstanding members who served at the Jamaica Football Federation. He's also a graduate of Manchester High School and Florida International University. He coaches in Florida now. So we're going to invite Kerry to come, and he's going to share with us, just his thoughts on local football, the work that he's doing over in Florida, and some probably ways that we can advance just football from a Jamaican perspective at this time. So let him feel welcome to I Am Sure Sports. Kerry, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here. Pleasure.
Yeah, man. Wonderful. Also, people, once you come on, as usual, we ask you to, if you have a question, you can put that up. And if it is relevant to what we're discussing, we will definitely bring that up. Yeah. You know what? Coach Minzy just said something from the coaches that says, great minds think alike. But, they also says fools seldom differ to Coach Minzy. No, this is, I link this man to join the show later. But Kerry, welcome. Why don't you just go ahead and share with persons who may not know you a little bit about who you are, with all those trophies behind you and plaques on the wall, look like World Cup trophies. Just tell them a little bit about you so they can get familiar with you.
Well, I guess maybe starting in Jamaica. So I went to, obviously grew up in Jamaica. Went to high school, prep school in Jamaica at Mount St. Joseph, and then also high school at Manchester High. Played a few years of D Cup. Probably not a very good player, so didn't really advance. But yeah, a couple years of D Cup, and then I left to go to university here in Florida, FIU. Well, actually, I went to school in South Carolina for a semester first. Didn't like the cold, so after one semester, ended back up in Florida, where I had a lot of the family that lives here. So went to FIU here, and I've sort of been here ever since, in terms of living and working, and obviously back and forth to Jamaica every now and then. But yeah, I'm based here at the moment.
Did you play soccer at FIU?
Yeah, I played both at Coastal Carolina University, which is where I went to first. And then I came here and played for only one semester at FIU. I actually had an injury that I got during the Costa Cup, that really kind of hampered ankle injury. So I didn't really play that much in terms of college until I got the injury sorted out after that. So yeah.
Yeah, and did you ever come back to play for the team that, I know Los Perfectos back in the days was run by your father. Did you ever play for Los Perfectos in the league in Manchester, in the Premier League? Go ahead and share that with me.
Well, not in the Premier League, because by the time we were playing at that age, we're not in the Premier League anymore, but we were playing the local Manchester leagues. So whenever I went back in the summer, for example, or when I had time to go back and play. The father was a coach though, so very biased, didn't give us any coach because I have myself and my two brothers as well. So yeah, I play for Lusky every now and then, but I have an older brother and also a younger brother. The younger brother actually lives in Jamaica currently.
Okay. But Las Perfectos, I know that Las Perfectos are, when I hear about them now, I hear about them in women's football, and they seem to do very well. Is it that the club is moving away from participation in men's football and is more focused on that, because it's still probably the biggest club to ever come out of Manchester?
Yeah, arguably.
Maybe Mile Gully was probably the closest. Yeah.
Coach Watson, because when I went over to Charlotte Twins, we were talking a little bit about that, because Coach Watson was the head of delegation, and he was a big Mile Gully person.
Right.
Yes. The Manchester coach as well, but before that, obviously Mile Gully. But yeah, Los P has moved more towards the women. Had a very good women's program up to a couple of years ago before they stopped it. The current Jamaica coach, Meron, was our coach, the women's coach at the time. So that's the connection, the connection with him. But yeah, a lot on the women's football, kind of moving away from the men's. I know they've been trying to start up recently a younger men's team, but I think just trying to figure out, where to fit in the pyramid, because I know their JFF is coming with some different type of leagues, sort of below the Super League. So I think trying to figure out whether it makes sense, because as you know, it's a big investment. You don't want to be just throwing money at a problem without having to think about where you're going to be eventually. Because I know when we had the men's team, we had a lot of players, for example, from out of Manchester.
Right.
To get them to Manchester, to board, to food, travel, both in terms of training and in terms of the games. It's not very easy, because we did that with the men, and we also did it with the women as well, because the women team, a lot of them were not based in Manchester either. So it was good though, in that we won, I think, the knockout one time, the JFF knockouts, and more importantly, obviously, we got some of the players overseas in terms of colleges and universities, so that they can have a future beyond football.
All right. So that's such an important thing when you talk about how. When you look at how Los Perfectos, Garfield, Plummer, and some of those guys were actually from Manchester. There are some good footballers down there. I remember even playing Manning's coming to play in Manchester, in a practice game, but they weren't all that, during that time. We used to we used to beat them up. But
Yeah.
I bring that up because what I want to ask, when you look back at the kind of investment that your father had in Los Perfectos and just where football is there a changing of philosophy, approach that is needed for football to really move to a place where people who are in it cannot suffer financially in it, because I've seen some of these things. So I can remember like persons like your father, Bim Williams from there you go, Danny Lynn from Constant Spring. I can call names of persons who the football ate up so much of their resources and there's never any return. Is there something, given your experience overseas now, what are some of the things that can be done to kind of shift it to where it is more, if it is not even profit making, it is breaking even?
Yeah, it's rough because when you mention the return, there's definitely no return in terms of a financial point of view, unless you're, in the business of some of the bigger clubs that are selling players. It's the only way you can get any kind of a financial return. I suppose the return is sort of a human capital return in terms of what I was talking about before, with getting young people opportunities and trying to get them off the street and into something that's sensible and that's good for them. But when you talk about the financial part of it, it's a rough situation because I know, if you have a club in Jamaica, it's pretty much you're throwing a lot of money into it. And even at the Premier League level, if you win the Premier League, the return that you get for winning the Premier League couldn't finance the club for the season. So I think we have to move, in my opinion, more towards a professional, at least at the highest level, at the Premier League level. We're not there. We're still semi-pro, I think. And I think we have to sort of figure out how we're going to get there. I know a couple of years ago, they were considering franchises. But that comes with another host of problems with the history of the clubs in Jamaica, and the fact that a lot of them are community-based, and that's how they get their support. So if you go towards a franchise system, then how do you decide whether the franchise is going to be at Harborview or Arnett or Tivoli?
Yeah.
And then how do you try to incorporate the rest of the island? Because a big problem that I think we've had in recent years is the weakness of the western part of the island. So when you talk about those days back in the day, when my dad was the president, the Western Jamaica football was very strong, based on a lot of money.
And central because you had Los Perfectos, Galaxy, Hazard. So you had teams in that. You had Black Lions as well that was out there on the outskirts. So you had like White Horses in St. Thomas over that side. So you had a wider spread, but continue.
Yeah. So I think you have to figure out a way to incorporate the whole of Jamaica. And that's not easy because I'm sure the people at Casafa will say, hey, we're the stronger clubs. So, we probably have to, if it's based on just merit, probably we should have even more clubs from Casafa in the Premier League. But to me, if you're looking at the development, the holistic development of football across the whole country, if all the clubs that are in the Premier League are, if it's 14 clubs and 12 are in Kingston, then I think you're ignoring a lot of talent. We have situations now where a lot of the Western-based players, they don't really have organized teams to play for in the West. It's good to at least see, I was going to say SEBA, but Montego Bay United, right? At least have Montego Bay United be a representative in the Premier League from the West. But obviously now that they're going to, reintroduce the promotion and relegation, Montego Bay United was one of the weaker teams last year.
Yeah.
So who knows how long that's going to last. So I can't tell you I know what the answer is, but I think we have to get to at least the highest level of the football being professional. How we get there, I'm not really sure. I know in Trinidad, for example, their league was a lot based on tying corporate sponsors to the teams. And we have some big corporate companies in Jamaica, Grace and Digicel, etc. I know we've been trying to do it a little bit, but since Chris Williams has come into the Premier League, I think he's kind of done a similar thing in that he has individual sponsors for individual teams. So I think that helps. But it's a struggle because it really is not much more than amateur. I know the players are getting paid something. Some people can't, find the payroll once they get to the middle of the season. So it's not really easy. And then the people that have the resources to do it, you have to encourage them to also continue to do it. And that's when the issues with the JFF come in, and the fact that I know from our point of view in terms of our club, it's been very difficult to deal with both our local association, the MFA, and then also the JFF in terms of how things work in terms of communication to the clubs. So sometimes it seems like unless you have a big passion for football, it almost doesn't make sense for you to be entering a team into any of these local leagues. So it's an issue that we have to kind of look at, I think.
Yeah. You know what is amazing, right? So a couple of things that you just highlighted that just came to mind. But let me just take this because someone just said here, his name is goes by the name before the game. He says in Trinidad, government subvention was a major revenue source for the league, and probably that is why their league got to the levels. But I know that now they have a league that is called the Trinidad Ascension League, which is their top league. I don't know what the Ascension, if that is a company or something over there. But in terms of the quality, I don't think it is as good as ours from what I've seen, because the games are televised. But you can see that there is more money available in that league than in our league. So to me, the quality of play is better here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can't tell you I'm an expert on Trinidad football now. I don't really watch much of it except what I see on, I think Sportsmax has some of the highlights of some of the games sometimes. But yeah, and to be honest, I think Jamaica's Premier League is improving. The little bit of it that I watch in terms of highlights and some of the live games that I go to. And when we got to the playoff part this past year, I saw some of the quality in terms of the goals that were scored in the semifinals, quarterfinals, finals. It's getting there, but again, it's difficult because we're always comparing ourselves to, even forgetting Trinidad, because Trinidad is another third world country, like us. But when we get to the higher levels, we're competing against, the bigger countries, and maybe their leagues are probably more well financed and better than ours. So it's difficult. It's difficult for us to, like, we're going to be in this tournament where we're taking most of the local players to play in this 3-3. I guess one of the games was cancelled, right? I guess Ghana game is off.
Right, the Ghana game is
right.
Is
so for the two other teams, but it's difficult because not only in terms of this particular tournament, in terms of the timing, because we're sort of in the off season of our Premier League.
Right.
So for us to gather up a bunch of players and go over there to play, and if they don't get the results that if they get beaten handily, then we're going to say all the local players aren't good, and we just need to be concentrating on foreign players. So it's difficult.
Yeah. All right. So recently, and you'd be familiar with this, one of the biggest night leagues in terms of corner leagues is in Manchester, the poorest league. I think Karam and his former president as well, Boxill is part of the group that puts that together, right? So they just had that, and the crowds look massive, all right? But that doesn't translate to New Green. I think New Green is a Manchester team. When you see New Green play, even in the playoffs of the Premier League, you don't see that same amount of people supporting a Manchester team that goes to watch like this 7-a-side night corner league game. What leads to those things? Is it that if the club is not from a particular place, they don't get support, though they are from the parish? Or should it be like Manchester? Should you call it a team down there? Manchester. You can't call it Manchester United. I don't know if you want to call it that because they're not doing too well. Yeah. Maybe Manchester City Sports Club. And so it is a representation of the parish more than a community. And that way you take the best players from all over the parish, put them together, and then try get to the Premier League. Could that work, or is it too divided in the parish to even get that kind of thing?
I think the last thing you said is instructive. Is it too divided in the parish to get that? Because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but there has been some discussion about the different factors in Manchester coming together and forming one club. I don't know how far down the line they've gotten in those discussions because, as you said, everybody has their own interest at heart. But I think that's probably where it needs to be. You mentioned the competition in Porus. We actually had one in Mandeville that just ended 3 weeks ago. I was actually at the semi-final. And there's an appetite for football in Manchester because when you go, it was the same, very similar to Porus in that it was, I think this one was a five-a-side. We have a turf field that we installed sort of right in the middle of Mandeville. And it was sort of like a business house competition, loosely. So you had maybe, I think they had 15 teams in total. And when you look at the crowd there, it reminds me of the days that I was growing up watching football in Manchester, because I haven't seen anything since at the club level. After Lusby kind of moved on to doing the women's football, Mile Gully was probably the closest thing. I think Mile Gully qualified for the Premier League at one point. But since then, we really haven't had much in terms of football. I think the football has stagnated there, even though we have good high school football in Manchester. So if someone was serious about putting together a team from Manchester, maybe using some of the local schoolboy players and then building a team, it could work. But again, can you get everybody on the same page?
Yeah.
Can you get everybody on the same page to form one team that's not their community team? Make one strong team and try to, how long has it been since we had a Premier League team from Manchester? I think Mile Gully was the last one.
Mile Gully. And New Green got close. But after this, they got close, but they didn't get to, because they were in the Super League and got to the playoffs. They asked this question because the truth is Central Jamaica has been at the leadership of Jamaica's football for the last probably 30 years. 30 years. And you're thinking that it is such a weak, that part of the football in terms of representation at the highest level is so weak. So I'm trying to figure out, how can you produce all these leaders, from presidents to general secretaries to people in influential positions in the football, but the parish football has not progressed in the same way that the individuals have progressed to the highest level of the football?
Yeah, it's a good question because, Mr. Boxer was president at one point. I know he has more of an affiliation with Clarendon, even though he kind of lives in Manchester. Clarendon of the central, parishes is probably the strongest in terms of football. And I think that was mainly based on people like John Green and Lloyd Plummer back in the day that had those, youth programs. A lot of good players coming out of Clarendon. I don't think in recent times you could say the same about Manchester and St. Elizabeth, which is sort of the other two, South Central parishes. I think part of it is leadership. The general secretary for the JFF, or I guess the former general secretary now, was the president of the Manchester Football Association for a good little while. But what have we accomplished in Manchester since then? We haven't really accomplished anything. The programs in terms of the local clubs, in terms of the youth development, is far behind some of the other confederations. So it's a big question mark, and I think St. Elizabeth is probably the same. Even though in Manchester you have, like I said, you have good high school football programs, Manchester High and others. In St. Elizabeth, you had Stets, who was for a long time, and yet whenever you heard a team from St. Elizabeth doing really well at the club level, so I think it's more based on leadership. Even though some of them propel themselves to leadership of higher bodies, JFF and so forth, but I don't think we've had the same kind of youth development in Manchester and St. Elizabeth as we've had it, for example, in Clarendon.
Yeah, someone is saying that good parish Mannings. I had 4 players from Manchester in our JPL team last season. So
Good.
they are, yeah. Yeah, so that is it. So they are producing the players, and I think Cavaliers have a player out there that played at Manchester High as well in
Rochester.
midfield. Rochester, I think
Yeah.
in Maxwell. Oh jeez,
It's the wing back that played for the under 20, Lamont Rochester.
Lamont Rochester. No,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's Marlando
Maxwell.
Maxwell
Yeah.
from Manchester as well. So they are players from Manchester who are in the Premier League. And so maybe there needs to be a way to entice them to stay in the parish. Marlando Maxwell. Yeah.
It has to be based on the club, right? You have to have a club like how maybe we had at Low Speed. That's a long time ago, 20 years ago. Or a club that has the finances, one, the leadership, two, and then somebody that can actually put together a club that can be competitive. Because it takes a lot of money. Like I see a lot of the teams tried. You mentioned New Green and some others. You have one that's closer to us, they call Downs.
Downs, yes.
You have a lot of clubs that are trying, but it's not easy. It's a lot of finances it takes. When Low Speed was playing in the Premier League, yeah, like you mentioned, Fildo and some others that were local players. But we had a lot of players from Kingston and other places to make sure the team was competitive enough to compete in the Premier League. And that was not cheap to bring those players that do not live in Manchester and bring them here for training and for games throughout the whole season and in the off season and the preparation time. That's not easy. So for smaller clubs like New Green and some of the other clubs that are trying as best that they can, it's not easy to compete at that level just with the talent that you have in Manchester.
Yeah, and then Brian is reminding us that the current Manchester president sits on the JFF technical committee, which I think is Mr. Watson.
Watson, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that is something you have to look at. If you sit in those positions, can you really manage the parish football and manage that? And something that you probably need to look at in the future. Maybe we need to have separate persons. Once you reach a certain position, you have to give up your role in the parish so you can, it's just like they're trying to. I know, don't want to get into it, but I know in politics they are saying that if a member of parliament isn't residing in the constituency, it is problematic because they are not able to understand the realities of the people who are there. All right. Yeah. But somebody here saying, Coach Kerry, big up yourself. That's Dave Stone LFC. That's a managed man. I don't know how he knows.
It's funny. As a managed man, and he played both with me and against me in different competitions here because he was in South Florida at one point.
Yeah,
so, very good player. Yeah.
Dave Stone can't play, but if you said Dave Stone good, big up Dave. So let's. I mean, what do you take now of? Let's get to the national football team. I mean, I know you watch a lot of games. Probably you are just as disappointed, disgruntled with us with the whole campaign. I don't want us to just speak negative, but in terms of the state of the football, I mean, how confident are you that we had our failures, but we are making steps to progress so that we can qualify for if you don't see those things, what are the things that should be implemented, the transferable principles that you see from where you are that could be added to the football now to ensure that as a nation, at least for 2026, when the World Cup is here, the men's team, like the female team, can again qualify for a World Cup, right? What are some of those things? But before you answer that question, I want to take this comment. He says, Mannings asked Kerry what's the name he gave to a famous vlogger, and he has a big laugh at the end. I don't know.
I don't know which vlogger I'm talking about specifically, but I have a guess, but I'll keep it to myself.
You keep it. I don't know. I don't have a clue what this is about. So I'd love to know. But yeah,
That's a good question, though. I like it.
it is a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Hey, somebody need to let
I won't answer it, but it's a very good question.
somebody need to let me in on this, please. Somebody. Brian, you need to let me in on this. Brian is the manager out there at Mullines, and you need to let me in on this. All right, but go ahead, Kerry. Just take that first question.
Well,
Yeah.
the first thing you asked is how confident I am. I can't say I'm very confident because if you look at it starts at the top, right? So not only I think you're focused just on well, at least your question was focused more on the men's senior team. But when you look at our football overall and how it's run, it kind of does not inspire confidence. You're asking about some of the steps that we could take to maybe get closer to qualifying next time. We're currently don't even have a coach. You know, the situation came up. They got rid of the other coach because of performance, and now they're looking for another coach. And we're sort of in, I don't know if it's a negotiation with Paul Hall at the moment. So, like, what is the direction going forward? We don't even know what the direction is. It's hard to have confidence when we don't know what the direction is. Not only from a technical point of view in terms of coaching, but also in terms of the federation. I think until we fix some of those problems at the top, you're going to start seeing these things recurring over and over and over. I know I was one of the ones that were kind of not as focused on the coaching situation during the last, qualification. I know we're always kind of thinking about the coach as the biggest factor in whether you win or lose. I didn't really see it that way. And probably I get a lot of cussing for that. And maybe they say I'm probably a Tapper fan because I'm always saying that pretty much he's been given a basket to carry water. And I don't think it's any different, whether it's Paul Hall is the coach, whether it's Fuzzy is the coach of the under 20, whether it's Tashana, who's the coach of the girls under 15.
Yeah.
I think they're all being given a basket to carry water. Because when you look at the team that we put together, for example, the U15 girls.
So let me ask you a question. You're a coach, Kerry. If you were given a basket and you're asked to carry water, would you take the job?
I wouldn't, but I have other options. The problem I kind of find, because this question comes up a lot, especially when we're talking about the national coach, especially if the national coach is a local coach, because we say, as poor as the JFF is in organization and in direction, if you're the coach, why are you taking the job then? The bottom line reason is that which coaches from Jamaica you see getting big jobs anywhere else. We do have some that are, and I saw Aaron Lawrence, for example, at the U15 coaching, I think Turks and Caicos. So we have some that get jobs at some of the smaller Caribbean territories. We have Miguel Coley over there in the Middle East, because of the connections with the former national coach. But there's not a lot of opportunities for Jamaican coaches outside of Jamaica. So when we say, if you're being given basket to carry water, then why you take the job? Part of the reason is that maybe the best job that they can get. So they try to make the best of it. But when you look at all the different levels of the football, I think it's a struggle. I was close with the under 20s because I traveled over there to watch the games.
Right, you were there, yes.
I don't want to go into it necessarily the details, but there is a rough situation for not only the coaches but the whole staff. That go with them. So,
I didn't bring up some of those things with the under 20 because I didn't want to be a distraction, but I was privy to what I would call embarrassing stuff for a national, in my opinion, federation. Like at this level, we should have been operating, having had so much experience. We're not like a new nation. Those are just my thoughts, but I felt like bringing those things up would have been a bigger distraction to the overall.
Yeah, but I don't know if I see it as a distraction. I see it more as just a parcel of the same thing. Because if you look at almost every
all right, so Kerry, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off my cam for just 2 minutes, and then you can continue, and then but I'll be listening. All right.
Yeah, so basically, I don't really see it as a distraction. I see it as more of a parcel of the whole issue. Because almost every national team that you watch, whether you just watch them on TV or you're maybe a little bit closer to them, where you travel and get to see them up close, all of them have the same issues. We have a big lack of preparation. We try to put together a team sort of at the last minute. I think maybe the under 20s got a little bit more in terms of preparation than some of the other teams have. But the U15 girls, for example, recently we just kind of took 2 weeks to put a team together. And when you look at them on the field, it kind of shows. You know, you don't expect a Jamaican U15 team to be maybe competing with some of the best teams, USA or Canada, but you'd sort of expect them to be able to compete against some of the teams that you would think that would be on their level. But when you see them play, it's like, even I think who did we play? Was it Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico defeated us.
Yeah, that's one of the games that I went to, and it was disappointing. We had one player, I think it was the number 11. I think her name is Maya. She's a player that plays over here in the States. She was excellent to me. Like she was like
a captain.
Like a one-person attack. Pretty much everything that we did went through her.
She was part of the U17 as well.
Yeah, she's quite good. The 7 and the 10 were, I think, are local players. You can tell that they have the talent, but in terms of their gameplay and decision making and knowing when to dribble as opposed to when to pass, like the team as a whole was kind of disappointing. Even from what I was expecting, it was disappointing in terms of the level that they could play at. So, I think almost every team I've seen, I've seen almost every team now. I saw the U20s the last time, this most recent time and the time before, which I thought they were very good, and they had Tariq McGee, etc. They didn't have any preparation, and they went and won all their games and tied with Mexico and got eliminated on goal difference.
Right, on goal difference. That's 2019.
Yeah, that's when the tournament was played up this way, up in Bradenton. So almost every team you look at, especially when you're close to them and you're maybe, traveling away to watch them play, so maybe you get to see some of the training sessions, etc. It's not an easy situation that the coaches are going into, and the whole staff is going into. And I think people kind of have an expectation that is kind of beyond what we should be expecting in terms of what goes into it. If you don't put the preparation into it and you don't have the organization around it, and you just put a team in there and then expect them to play well, almost every team you see, we kind of start slow, and then it takes us a little while to get into the tournament because we're not really ready. So using the games themselves in the tournament to get ready. That same U20 team, not this time, but the time before, that I said did very well. I went to their first game. I think they were 0-0 with, I don't remember who it was, Grenada, up until like the 89th minute, where we would expect to beat that team, finally found a goal, and then we started playing better as the tournament went on. Because that's the tournament where Basil Reynolds was coaching and quit.
Right, and then Jerome Wade came on.
Jerome Wade took over. Yes. So you could see the lack of preparation in the team, and you could see the talent in the team as the competition went on, to the point where we won every game, and it was just that goal difference against Mexico and the format that forced us not to go through. So I kind of see the same as almost every team is at the same level in terms of the lack of preparation and organization.
Yeah, and I think you're correct on that. I tell people there are a couple of things we need to get right. We need to recruit the best players and get them in early. I think though, and this is where a lot of us are kind of confused. How does this whole selection process works? Is it the coach? Is it a committee? Who does this? Because we know, for example, Mr. Devon Porter, I don't know if you're familiar with him, says, Coach James, I think we need to speak. Management can forward my contact to you. Devon Porter is over there in England. And then the great Noel is here. He says, about time. And of course, he's speaking about your final video. Yeah. But let me get back to the question I'm asking, because I honestly believe that for the girls U20 team, the girls U17 team, the men's U20 team, even our senior team, I don't know if it's down to the coaches. but we had better players available to us on several occasions that were not chosen. And so if the coaches were part of the selection and didn't choose those players, then they have to take some responsibility. If it is that the federation could not afford some of those players into the setup, then they must take responsibility. And that is where we are confused. We're not sure if some of the players who came in from England, like Dexter Lembikisa, who could have played, Delano Splat, who could have played, and those players were not selected, right? Who do we, you know, is it the coach? Is it the technical committee? Is it like, and this is where I think a lot of fans are like in this middle ground. The coaches are not good because they had better players. But when we hear you who are there, you're saying that, listen, the coaches were given basket to carry water. So
yeah, it's the thing is, it's very haphazard. So I think what you're saying is very true. Like, how much of the blame do you put on the coach? How much of the blame do you put on the JFF? Because I hear the technical director, the main person in charge is Mr. Speed, right? And every time I hear Mr. Speed talks, he basically says it's up to the coach.
Here you go.
The coach is the one that makes the decision, which is fine in a way because you want the coach to have the latitude to be able to make his own decisions. But when the way that we do our selection of coaches, we don't even have a coach generally that's a permanent coach. We have the youth trying to come up, and then a couple of weeks before, a month or two before, we say, okay, we're going to give the job to Fuzzy. And similar to all the rest of the teams. So it's not like we have any kind of continuity where we can say there's communication between the technical committee and the coaches to say, this is how we're going to put the team together. It's almost like haphazard. Like the tournament comes around and, we hurriedly try to put together a team. And so a lot of and part of it is the other thing you said was the finances. Because I know for a fact that a lot of the players that come from overseas, I know there's been a lot of talk about quota recently. And I think part of the reason behind all of that is because of the finances. They don't want to spend all this money bringing players from overseas when they think they have local players that can do it. The problem is, I agree with what you said about identifying early. Like if you identify, it doesn't matter what the number is, if you identify a certain amount of players that you think are at the level, that in terms of at least their ability, and then also have the commitment, because it's another whole other area, right? If you can identify enough players that have the commitment and the ability that are coming from England or wherever else, and you identify them early, and you can put them into the team from early so that they can get gelled with all the rest of the players, then that's great. But that's not what we have done. Most of it, since 98 almost, that's not what we've really done. We kind of, like this tournament, we're playing a bunch of local players now. We're going to wait until probably it gets closer to qualifying next time, and then we're going to find out which players in England are hot, and then try to bring some of them. And then we saw what happened in the Panama game, where we tried to play a bunch of them at the same time, and they were not gelled and didn't have any idea of how each other played, and you saw the result there. So it's difficult because I know the brief amount of times I listen to the YouTubers, I know there's a big thing about there's some people that are very anti-foreign players, and there's some people that are very pro-foreign players. And I think we just need to find some kind of middle ground where, because the issue is not so much foreign players and local players, and the issue is whether the foreign-based players that you bring in are good enough, committed enough, and whether they have the time to gel with the rest of the team. I think if they have all of those three things, even the people that are not so much happy with bringing in foreign players would have to look at the logic of saying that makes sense, because we do have a lot of talented players in the diaspora, and if we don't take advantage of it, every other team is taking advantage of it. So I think we have to as well.
But we don't have this problem with the senior women's team. Or if it is, we have never seen. So why is it on the male side? There
are issues on the male side that are not present on the female side. because I know we're going to go down a road, but we talk about local clubs, and we've had a history of people that are involved in local clubs being involved in decision making at the JFF level, and we still have that today. And so, for example, when we have this team that's going to play those African teams, it's almost like a showcase, right? It's a showcase for local players to see if people can see them and maybe get them contracts. We don't really have that issue on the women's side because we basically don't have any women's club football. So there's nobody worried about playing at all foreign 11 because there's nobody missing out on their pocket of being able to sell players by getting them seen in the national team. So that's a big issue as well. That's an ongoing issue. And that's an issue that's not easy to solve. It's sort of a conflict of interest in a way. Because, and I would see in the past, I don't want to call in the names about people that were in the, big positions in the JFF that were pushing their club's players. We know we've had that in the past, and you could argue that we're having the same issue now. But I don't think we have that issue on the women's side, which is why it's a lesser deal.
Yeah, listen, I will say that same problem still persists in our football on the male side, where persons of influence try to get players connected to them in the team. And my premise is very simple. Players should be picked based on playing merit. If you are the best in your position, if you're a Jamaican, you should play. What I want, though, is that you must also be available for preparation. What my issue is, no player, whether local or overseas, can be called up 2 days before a game to go and play against a United States and a Mexico. Never play together and expect to win. These guys have the Olympic Development Program, the USA. Listen, they have that. In the States now, this. A lot of the countries, the El Salvador, Honduras, they have camps for Honduran players in the States that they run regular. Yes, El Salvador do it. A lot of countries are doing it, where they have them at under 14, under 16, and they meet in different places in the States, and they're all Honduran playing together. And some of those players end up making the Honduran under 17, under 20, and so on. I think we need something like that from a Jamaican perspective, which is where persons like you out in Florida and all the other Jamaicans out there need to probably put together something like that. Well,
it's funny you say that, because I agree completely. And I know firsthand, Honduras, Trinidad, Haiti, those 3 countries had their combines here in Florida in terms of looking at young players that have the descent of their country, and they're doing it. The problem on our end, I think, if I remember correctly, it was an year program that Mikey Barnes was on.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, right.
Well, so with the under 23 team that they had, right, yes.
Right. So I was actually helping him with that program in terms of the coaching side of it. And that was not good. I don't want to remember it.
It
ended up being a disaster because of the same issue. Because we were doing, and that was 3-4 years ago, we were doing some of the same things that the Haitians and the Trinidadians realize that's important right now, in that we were trying to identify the talent in the diaspora. In that program, we were starting with Florida and New York. I tried to get local, players from here in the States that were really good, trying to put them together into a program like a combine and getting all the information so that we could eventually show them to the JFF. Not in a way of saying, okay, all of these players are going to come over and take over the role of all the local players. It can't be that. It can be where we just wholesale put all of these players, over all of the local players. But if you have a couple really talented players, I was starting the U20 recently with a goalkeeper and some others, from England, where they're really quite a bit above what we have. Then you have to use that to make the rest of your team better. We don't have any program like that. We don't really have any way of identifying players. One of the under 15 girls players that was in the team, it was just one of the parents reached out to me and said, I have a daughter that's really good. So I sent information to the coach, and that player ended up making the final 18 players. which is crazy when you think about it, because
because in no time like that, just like that,
there's no way they would have known about the player unless the parent having to reach out to the federation themselves or to me. There's no way for us to get a database of those players. Obviously, the JFF have enough issues as it is. The JFF can't really do that, you know. But what the JFF can do, I think, is sort of outsource that kind of responsibility. So, you know, if you have a few people in Florida that you trust, and a few people in New York, and a few people in California,
just say a few Jamaicans. Yeah, there you go. Because they are Jamaicans.
Yeah, they are in all of those places, and the people that are willing, that are so patriotic and that are willing to help, and will do it for free, like it was what we were doing with the program here, and all the GF, because what we were planning to do was putting the Florida and New York team together. Having them play against the local U23 at our expense. So we were going to pay for the expenses for the team and for the coaches to come and watch them. So, you know, always there's going to be an issue. Even if the JFF is run perfectly, they're not going to have enough money to do all the things that they need to do. So when you have chances to kind of outsource that and to have, you know, patriotic Jamaicans, like you said, in these other territories, that can do the legwork for you, and you just come at the end and look, and your coaches make the decision. To me, that's the way forward. And I see a lot of just within the last couple months, I've seen Haiti and Trinidad do combines here for their young players. Not even at other players. I think they were starting with under 15s and 17s.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Exactly. And I saw, I met a Honduran who was talking to me about Honduras doing it out there in Florida, and that is their plan, because they realize that there are so many Honduran playing in the academies and the club system in America. They don't have to spend the resources to develop them per se. They just get them at that level, which is what. But the other issue though is after this, what happens? So we just had some players coming out of England, and this is again, Kerry. I mean, there are so many things, so many questions, but we probably have to do some next time, but because there's so much I want to ask you. So we had a game in Catalonia that we picked some players. We lost terribly, and some of those players were playing for the first time. We have not seen them or heard anything about them. All right. So we have I know there's a window, and it's not a FIFA window, so there's not available. But we don't know anything more about those players, because none of the goalkeepers that came, there's a Joel Latibo there. So there are a couple of other players that were there that we have not heard about. They took like this called Nico Bress, for example, was called up. He was not called up again. And you wonder, like, why did you call him at that age to go there? All right, fine. Maybe there's some logic behind it. Fine, I'll give them that. It's just that I don't understand it. But they may have a logical reason for this. We have a U20 tournament now. We had a goalkeeper, Kanaya Boyce Clark. We had Tyler Roberts. We had Luke Badley Morgan. And the other, we had Zion Scarlett and Kobe and all of these guys. Then you also had others who came and tried out that did not make the team. What is going to happen to all of these players?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer for, because I agree with you completely that it's haphazard. So, like you said, the Catalonia game, we invited a whole bunch of players. So you can say, okay, these are maybe some of the players they're interested in, yet we have another tournament and they're not available now, or they don't pick them. So whether they're not available or whether they just didn't pick them, we don't know, because the JFF is not very good at communication either. So the fact that we don't even have a permanent coach in place. So like I said before, Mr. Speed said that pretty much the response for picking the team is on the coach. So the coach of the team that's going to play this 3-team tournament is who?
Well, I asked that question, and he said this. He said Marion Garden selected the players. We asked him that on the program. So
which is fine, you know, but
Marion Garden in his article said he had a long discussion with Paul Hall about the preparation of the team. So Mr. Speed in response to that said that the coach can talk to anybody that he wants.
in a way, look, from a coaching perspective, because I'm a coach as well. So in a coaching perspective, it's good to give the latitude to the coach to pick a team. But when you have a situation where the current coach is not even the permanent coach, so he's a coach because of the fact that the other coach is not available, because of club commitments and because we haven't even signed the other coach. So I don't know what's we're paying. I don't know how much. I assume most of it is being paid by whoever invited us. But if we're spending any money on this 3-team tournament, and we have, like you said, no guidance, everything is haphazard, where the person, like you said, is making the decision as to who plays is not even the permanent. I guess he's the permanent assistant coach.
Well, he's not the permanent. They said he's not the permanent assistant coach because his contract. I asked that question.
After the Gold Cup,
his contract, all the coaches' contract was expired. However, he works for the JFF. He's one of the coaches, along with Peart and Downswell, and I think Vass Reynolds, because some are part of the coaching school. So in other words, they are paid like on a per game basis or per camp basis. But it's not, to me, how can I, like I said, how can I give this kind of responsibility to someone who if say I hire I don't know, Pep Guardiola to be the coach. This coach is not going to be the assistant coach. He's going to bring in his own team. So what then would be the purpose of giving him autonomy to select a group of players?
No purpose. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Because in one way, if you had a permanent person there and you were giving that person the latitude and you figure, okay, this person has a 5-year contract and we're looking long term. So this person is going to make the decision as to which set of players he calls up now with the eye to the next time he's going to call up these other players, like you said, for a logical reason. So there's some reason why we're doing it. But when we're in a situation where we don't have a coach, where the qualifying has ended a couple months ago, we still don't have a coach, and now you're going into a tournament with a temporary coach, and you're giving that temporary coach all the responsibility to pick the team. To me, that's not a logical way of doing things. I know the technical committee, like you said, is going to be under a lot of pressure already because they said they have probably undue influence as to who gets picked and who plays. But you have to have an overall philosophy of how you're doing things. So if the overall philosophy comes from a technical director or a coach that has a long-term contract, then that's one thing. But what we're doing is pretty much every tournament, and even at the international level, even at the senior international level, we're just kind of going tournament at tournament and saying, okay, there's no real reason to hire the ball right now because we're not playing anything. So who cares if we hire him now? Well, we should be preparing. So this tournament, I know it's local players because it's outside the international window, but at least we should be looking and saying, whoever isn't going to be in charge of the program looks at these players and say, okay, these are the local players that I want to see if I can find 4 or 5 to put into my team. So that next time we come around and we have issues with players' commitment or whatever, that we have at least this set of players that are going to be able to go in and play. It doesn't look like anything like that is happening. So I don't know if it's communication, like you said, I don't know if they have some great plan behind the scenes that they're just not telling us. But just looking at it from the outside, it doesn't look organized.
Because a couple of things I recommended is, if you have a technical director, you're in negotiation with a coach, and the technical director has the overall plan for the development of the football at the senior level. Why couldn't the technical director lead a team for a tournament that has little or no bearings on your FIFA ranking and have your assistant coach there?
Which is probably what would happen normally, right? Logically, if you don't have a coach in place, that's normally what would happen. Exactly. But I haven't heard the reason as to why that is. Why you would just say, okay, we haven't signed Paul Hall yet, plus he has club commitments. We're going to play a tournament, so let's put the assistant coach in charge of everything. It's one thing to put the assistant coach in charge of the day-to-day actual coaching of the team on match day. It's another thing to say the assistant coach has the whole leeway to pick whoever he wants. Nobody can tell him who to pick. that can't really be logical.
Yeah. And so that's one thing. The other thing I always ask is, and I think Fuzzy has done at St. George's, done well at Waterhouse. And like I said, maybe he was given basket to carry water because there were some other challenges. I also felt, though, that he made some decision that, I mean, I would not have made as a coach, but fine, be that as me. If you're planning a pathway of development for your players, you have an assistant coach in your national program, wouldn't it be better for that assistant coach? Because Meron has also come out and said that, boy, he knows he's not there yet. He needs to learn to, and maybe one day in the future he can be the head coach, but he's not at that place yet, which is humble, for him to admit that he's not there yet. But the other thing is that I always felt like, shouldn't he then have been given the under 20 team, because that is progressing, because you're going to take players from your U20s into your senior team.
To me, that's logical. Because, like you said, the under 20s is the next level below. To me, you have one or two of the under 20s could be in the national squad right now. The goalkeeper for one. So I do think that would make sense. I think Meron, if I remember correctly, is an under 17 coach, boys coach.
Which don't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me either. I would prefer, like, if they're really committed to Meron Meron has a lot of experience across both male and female at the different levels, right? So if you feel that he's ready to be the assistant coach of the national team, I don't see why, because Fuzzy, I don't think has ever been in the national program before. So to give Fuzzy the national U20 team when you have your national team assistant coaching U17, unless I don't know if the theory is there, the logic is there, but I would think that if you have your assistant coach at the national level, then he should be able to coach the U20s, because, like you said, that's the natural pathway, right? You already see one or two natural progression, and also the fact that you want to ideally, well, I was talking about a style of playing in terms of the national team. You want to see maybe the under 20 player closer style to what the national team plays, ideally. So for the continuity, it would make sense to me. Like when they were trying to decide who was going to be the coach, that's the first thing that came to my mind, was that your assistant coach is Meron. So unless you have another idea in mind that's more logical than that, then why would he be the coach of the U20? It didn't make sense to me either. Yeah.
And then what you can do, you can tag the assistant coach for the U20 to be the under 17 coach.
Right.
So because I'm thinking like so many things were confusing, because Xavier Gilbert because he has been successful with girls football, have to give him that. But Meron Garden did well with Lusby and also with Lennon. All right. So I always though he did well in the Dacosta Cup with Garvey Maceo and with the Lennon team, so he has had some success on both. But I also believe that he's one of the better female coaches around. No. I think he's right up there.
Yeah,
and I think, like, to me, I feel like that is where he better serves the football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so again, we don't get a lot of these explanations. We don't really have communication with the JFF. So these questions that we're asking back and forth, well, I haven't heard anybody give an answer to it, but yeah, and I know Meron has a big history in the women's. But again, if he's coaching the national under 20, if he's coaching the senior national team as the assistant coach, I think continuity wise, it would make sense for him to be the coach of the under 20. And vice versa, like the assistant coach for the under 20 be the head coach of the U17, etc. To kind of provide some continuity and to maybe hopefully see if we can get the teams playing in a similar way, so that it's not a huge change when they step up to the next level.
Yeah. All right, we have gone up to an hour, so let me just take some of the comments and then I'll release it, because I hear you have some more engagement. Right, this one says the last men's CONCACAF U20. All but one of the American players on the roster had MLS contracts. Since then, that one signed a contract. He is 16 and playing in MLS every week. And I think what before the game is suggesting is that the Americans were coming in with players playing in their highest league, right? We had like some guys who they weren't even starting in the local leagues out here, or played in the local leagues. They were really high school footballers coming up against. And it ties into what Mr. Porter said earlier, because there were way more players available from out of England who were not. I mean, this was one of the most complex or complicated U20 scene, because a lot of the players who actually came, came because of fans. It was the fans who purchased their tickets to come to Jamaica. If that had not happened, then none of them would have been there, which is not good. Which is not good.
And I know some of even the fans and parents also paid the charter in terms of getting them over there. So yeah.
Exactly. And so the point I'm making though is that it cannot be is that you have a son, Kerry, who is born and raised in Florida. He has a Jamaican passport. He visits Jamaica. And if he wants, good enough to make the Jamaica U20, you are being told, while he plays for Colorado Rapids, you are being told that you have to buy his ticket for him to come to Jamaica. And if he's good, they will select him to the team. When he comes and tries.
But that goes back to what we were saying, because we don't have a way of tracking the players. So what the JFF will tell you is that they don't know the player. So if the player is playing in XYZ, they don't know him. They don't know if he's good or not. So he's gonna, he has to pay his way to come, and then when they find out he's good enough to make the team, then they'll pay. If we had a system of tracking the players, we'd already know if the player was good enough.
Let me ask you a question. Kerry. Sorry to interject, but tell the Jamaican footballer that, hey, this is, you may like a lot of them, but like he's one of your favorite Jamaican footballer. Like pass or in the past.
My favorite, Hector Wright.
All right. So if Hector Wright calls you and he says, hey, Kerry, I have a midfielder, I know, at Cornwall, and I know you need a midfielder out there. Based on the person you know him to be and his eyes for the game, I mean, this is Hector Wright. This is not like Manningsman calling you. All right. So my point is, when you have persons, for example, like a Ricardo Fuller, who is coaching overseas, or a Paul Young, who has been a part of the national setup before, coaching in the States, I think in Atlanta, or a Freddie Butler in Florida, or a Kerry James. Why would they? And they have kids, and they have not invited their kids. They're calling you about other players who sometimes are not even in their clubs and academy. You really think like those people would go through all of that to send someone who is not at the level to perform? Boris Johnson, I can call your names, when they have kids in their own clubs that they are not sending.
But that goes back to what we were saying before. Like, so you have, I don't want to put my name with all of you said Fuller and all of these guys, but use the example of Freddie Butler, who coaches in Port St. Lucie in Florida here, and who is former Jamaican international, right? Has big experience in terms of where he was coaching in England, all of that. So obviously we wouldn't question his ability to judge a player's talent, right? How are we using Freddie Butler in our national team in terms of identifying players?
Yeah.
Like what we said before about what we're trying to do in Florida here and New York. If Freddie Butler is one of the people that you tag as someone that you trust and that has the interest of the nation at heart, then why isn't Freddie Butler organizing a weekend camp where he gets all of the local players that have Jamaican parents, heritage in South Florida, and looking at all of them and saying, okay, 20 people came to the camp, these 4 are pretty good enough. Then, providing that information to JFF. I'm sure there are other people that are doing it. I think you mentioned some of the people that are in the chat there that already do that. But it's very haphazard. Like, do we have a structure where we're doing that on a kind of a full-time basis, not just when the tournament is about to start and we're trying to put that team together, right? Can we identify those unactive teams from now, so that in 5 years' time they can be playing U20. Why not? And I think we're not doing a good job of utilizing that talent that we have overseas. Freddie Butler is such an obvious example. You mentioned Ricardo Full and other people that are in different places, that are doing different things. Lauren Donaldson, before he got involved in the women's
Lauren
team,
Donaldson,
but why aren't we utilizing
Boris? You have Boris Johnson. You have Tyrone Marshall.
Tyrone,
Tyrone. Listen, even Tyrone's case, Wooldy Harris, because Tyrone and Shafar is here. Tyrone had a son who they're asking the same thing, who is at Cincinnati too, playing. No, come on, no, I don't know. But listen, maybe you need to apply for the job of head of recruitment and player tracking. You know.
I don't think I'm diplomatic enough. I don't get along with people well, so.
You know, so maybe that's what you should do. You should apply for the job. You know. Yeah. Yeah. But listen, I know you have a next engagement, so I mean, I don't know if anything you want to say, but I'd love to have, because a lot of this was on the male side of the football. I know you are also very, versed in terms of what is happening with the female team. They have a game coming up against South Korea, a couple of games coming up with South Korea, and I'd really love. Oh, yeah. Special edition, the Cornwall College man is just reminding me that Tyrone Marshall is a FIU.
Yeah, Tyrone Marshall was actually at FIU when I started FIU.
Oh, yeah.
I think we went to the NCAA final and lost.
And he told her that he was a center forward.
Yes. Very good player. And then obviously we started in the national team. So
yeah. So special edition was there. Special edition is from Cornwall College.
Okay.
I think special edition was on the team that peel oranges for the games. We need to first address the local versus overseas issue. Not everyone is on board with this concept of openness and meritocracy, right? We just stand currently say that this is the first thing that needs to be settled. Like the best, and I keep on saying it. People, I'm not in the middle. You know where I'm at? The best players must always play. As long as you have a Jamaican passport and you are available, the best players must always play. If you're not the best, let's find some other way for you to develop. But when it comes down to the national team in competitive game, if we have 11 players who are playing in the USL and they are the best 11 players, they must play. If you have 11 players and they play in the EPL, they must play. If they are playing in other places in Europe, they must play. And if they are located in Jamaica, they must play as well. But the 11 best, and it's a combination of all three, the best players must always play. I'm not into this thing of playing players, because we need to have a mixture of local players. We need to have the best players, right? And because I know our local players, the better ones, always move overseas early. This is not like in 1994 leading up to 1998, where a majority of the players were locally based. Now, if you're 17, Kerry, you're out of Jamaica if you're good. No,
yeah, we have even some of the U20 players got contracts already. So yeah,
there you go.
Much easier to get opportunities now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Christopher Wright, this is a New Green. I think he leads up New Green. He says, "Man is tell bless up from New Green Football Club." So he's saying, "Tell you bless up."
Big up to New Green.
Christopher Wright is a person who is part of the management at New Green.
Yeah, man, New Green has done a good job for football in Manchester. Very good job.
Yeah, and then R&R saying Manchester High old boy. You know.
the emphasis on old.
All right, and then he says, I just joined and don't know if the question was asked earlier. I heard that none of our national players in their club team start in 11, hence why Jamaica not great in midfield. Why is that so? None of our starting 11 players play in their club team. Which starting 11? If you're talking the players now that are on, I'm not sure if you're speaking about the team now, which is a very, I call it a featherweight team. To be honest, this is not the strongest Jamaican team, but the players get an opportunity to go. So if you're talking about that, there's 3 players. Alwyn Harvey starts, Fabian McCarthy starts, those midfielders starts. I don't know if you're speaking to that, or I don't know. So I'm not sure. So you can redo that. I'm confused. Why do you? Mushet. This person says Mushet from Huamud, U23 era.
Yeah, man.
Mushet is in Manchester.
The school?
Yeah.
No,
I don't know.
When you said Mushet, I think he's talking about a name.
Mushet from okay.
Yeah, from Homewood.
Jamaica starting 11 plays in midfield in their club. I don't. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure I'm following that comment. Yeah. But Kerry, listen, I want to thank you so much. This was a worthwhile. Listen, one question I must ask you, because a lot of people, there is a mysterious person on the platforms, and people have been speculating. Some people thought it was me. They thought it was Mr. Speed. And I've even heard people say it's you.
Oh, who's that?
He goes by the name TikTok.
TikTok?
Yes, I'll tell it.
As in the TikTok, as in the social media TikTok.
No.
Like, oh, yeah, TikTok.
No. The person goes by the name TikTok.
Oh,
so they said that. Yeah.
So why they thought it was me?
I listen, they thought it was me. They thought it was Mr. Speed, but they are convinced that it is someone in the JFF. But so I tell them that, but you're not in the JFF, so it could not be you. Because the person, what happened is that the person normally comes on and opposes everything the vloggers are saying on all the platforms. Really, he defends the JFF basically. So,
well, I think I probably cost the JFF too much to be that person.
I'm telling you.
Because they say I'm too harsh. So
yeah, Christopher says Mushet was a standout at Mile Gully and
yeah, man. Yeah, man.
He was a baller.
Yeah, man.
Not Ran Mushet. Because Ran Mushet went to manage.
First name was good player though.
Okay. So somebody spelled TikTok with a C, not a K.
TikTok.
Mushet, big baller man. He get a run in the Messam Dawes U20. Okay. Yeah.
I remember.
Somebody laughing say, I really ask you if you're a TikTok. That's what the people thought it was me. I don't know.
I don't think I follow the YouTube enough to be TikTok, because I don't listen to the shows as often as I probably should.
But I must say, finally, because we're having our Premier League show right after this. What are your thoughts on Liverpool? Because I know you're a Liverpool man.
Yeah,
your big forward got a crazy red card. What do you make of them this weekend going up against a mighty Manchester United?
The first thing is, I think people jump to conclusions too much, like early in the season, especially when they play 2 games, and all you can hear is about how much Liverpool misses Mane. I don't think there's any football reason that we ever got rid of Mane, because Mane is an excellent player, fitting perfectly with the team. I think it's more a financial thing in terms of both contract and looking at the player's age and bringing in a younger player for a lesser contract. I think he'll do well. It's going to take some time, because I think the 2 main players that we brought in as replacement in terms of the attacking players are completely different style-wise than the ones that we had before. So Nunez is more a actual center forward, as opposed to what we used to play with, Firmino as a false 9. And I think Diaz is more a natural winger than Mane is, as Mane is more like how we've been playing with the wingers playing very close to the goal, and Firmino dropping off. So it's going to take a long time. I think I want to say a long time. It's going to take some adjustment to figure out how to play together. But I think that front 3 can be a good front 3. Obviously, very sad to see Mane go, because he's one of my favorite players. But that's the reality of football nowadays. You have to make financial decisions, and I think it was a financial decision. So we'll see what we do against Manchester United. Hopefully it goes like how it went last year.
Yeah. All right. And then this person says, Sensei Diego Mushet Cornbread Chemo.
Yeah, man.
This is like
Big
a
ballers.
Manchester. This
Big
is
ballers.
like a
Homewood.
Manchester conversation.
I'm gonna say Homewood used to kill us, which is kind of true. So most of them are like Homewood players.
Oh, this is like a Manchester conversation right here.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm going to leave. Liverpool lost the best black player in the world. You're seeing the effects, right, of that. All right. But we'll see at the end of the season. But Kerry, thank you so much. I see the lights are dimming, but really a pleasure having you on. I hope we can do this again. Someone said that the next time when we talk, I must put up all my trophies in my background. I'm not sure. I have so many.
None of them are actually real. It's all fake trophies that
There you go. But thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And it's always a joy seeing you all over the place following Jamaica and posting those pictures. So keep on doing the good work.
Man, no problem. We'll catch up another time.
All right, Kerry. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right. So there you go, people. That was Kerry James, son of former JFF. Oh, brain drain. I missed that. He's the son of the former JFF president, Mr. Tony James. Also coaches out there in Florida. Sorry, brain drain. I missed that question. Listen, this is I Am Sure Sports. I am Manning's man. If you have not yet, hit the like button so others can know about the work that we're doing here. Also, share. If you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe. All right. The Akubura says, isn't it descriptive that 4 days after he made a major blunder, Mike Dean then writes in his column that he made a mistake on the pull-in Mark Laird and the non-call on the really? He should be fired. Is he related to Rick James? I'm going to have him back on to speak about female football, Brain Jane. So please make sure that you're on to do that. We're going to end the stream right now because we have the EPL show and the people are just waiting to come on for their banter. So we're going to jump onto that. So all the EPL fans, they can join us. It won't be long because we want to go over to the coach's desk this evening and support him and the other vloggers. So we won't be long, but we're going to have the EPL show right now. Thank you so much for joining, for watching I Am Sure Sports. I'm Manning's man. And as usual, we say we are over and we are OUT.
Yo, watch about dog, SK New Air this. The body out there, Sniper King I represent for I Am Sure Sports. You get to me, I say, when you want the latest news and sports and updates and all of that, check out I Am Sure Sports. You know the thing goes in. Remember, you cover the whole island. Remember Kingston, Westmoreland, Galchester, Orchard Race, Galtigo Bay. Everywhere. I Am Sure Sports. Check it out for the latest news and latest updates. Sniper King I represent. Where them feel like? Ha! Yeah, someone on for the food from we young, from we day, you need height. I Am Sure Sports. Yeah, dog.